Broadcasting live, this is the Handicappers Report, brought to you by the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany, and CapitalOTBBet.com, the premier online wagering site in New York State. CapitalOTBBet.com. Sign up today.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Handicappers Report, version 2024. Hard to imagine, Seth.
No, we've talked about that the last couple of weeks. How time.
My favorite one now is because both Seth and I were full-fledged. We're 24 years into this century. Like 2000. One of the things I like to do with math is think about this. The gap between now and 2000 going the other way was the bicentennial. I mean, we are 24 years into this set, and Y2K doesn't seem, and I know that's a characteristic of as you're getting older in life, but we are 24 years into, I mean, heck, we've been here. How long?
It's,
a decade?
That sounds
2012,
right.
2013. Yeah. Maybe Dan, our director, he'll know. He'll shout it out. But, I mean, it's just the one thing, though, is because if you're, I don't know, I would say, here's another one. Kids that graduated high school in 2000, they're in their 40s. I mean, these things are, just, but
every once in a while somebody brings up a movie and I think, oh, yeah, that was fairly, and then you start to think about it and it's like, oh, wow, that was all. Well, a few weeks ago we were talking about Continental Divide.
Oh, and yeah, Belushi.
Like, and then you start thinking about, what's that?
40 years ago. I think he made it like,
had to be
it wasn't his last one.
Early 80s?
I would say like 81 if I had to pick a year because, it was after Animal House. I think Neighbors was the last movie he made. I think he passed in 82. So you're like, yes, but 24 years into this century. I mean, it's remarkable. I mean, to me, as time flies, and I know we're expecting some snow tonight, so please be careful out there. And
very careful.
And obviously, in that regard, it's we're into January and looks like we're going to get our first precipitation of snow. There hasn't been any bitter cold weather. I'm not complaining.
I think it's the same storm. I was in yesterday, and my monitor up here has the track.
Is the Oaklawn storm?
Oaklawn.
I saw snow.
There was like a little dusting on the infield, and the track was sloppy, and all the outriders are wearing parkas. And so I texted my sister, who's in the northwest part of the state, and she'd gotten 3 inches yesterday, which is, for them, is very unusual. And I think that's the same storm that is going to come up and hit us.
Now, it's funny because I would have asked, but you already said how rare it is. But what's always been the thought is, for me, is I always kind of, and this is going back 40 years, where I used to think that the fairgrounds meet and the Oaklawn meet had a lot of symmetry, but clearly they don't, because Oaklawn doesn't have turf racing. But you're also saying your sister doesn't really experience snow to speak of, and she's in the northwest corner, and Oaklawn's more middle down?
I would
type
say
I've seen on a map,
significantly further south.
So so be careful. It seems like it's going to start tonight into tomorrow. Obviously, we keep you updated on anything New York does, etc. But
and I will say, okay, because a lot of people, why doesn't Oaklawn have a turf course? And now that they've extended their season, now maybe that's a legitimate question. But the season going back just a few years ago, they don't get a lot of snow down there, but they do experience the season. Leaves fall off the trees, and so grass isn't going to grow.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen really what I have noticed, and I would like to enjoy is it used to finally look nice, or springtime racing festival of the South week, which was their final week of racing, but now they go to the Kentucky Derby. So I'd like to go to Oaklawn that last week of April, because sometimes on Arkansas Derby Day, it just looks beautiful. And you're like, oh, finally, spring has sprung at Oaklawn. And then you start to notice that, I'm sure they're not far apart, but where you see like Fairgrounds obviously looks nice, almost throughout their year that it doesn't rain, and they have the turf racing when they can. So, but be careful out there. It's the new year. Interesting. The calendar turns to the Kentucky Derby focus for recently turned 3-year-olds with the universal birthday on January 1st. The Eclipse Award balloting. It seems that I can't get a feel via Twitter, but the people who are revealed their ballots, you might be right. It might be Cody's Wish is going to be the horse of the year. That would be my guess based on what I see on Twitter.
I went back and forth between. I eventually went with Cody's Wish. I went back and forth between Cody's Wish and Idiomatic, who's just the year I love. She started in January and goes to November and gets really hot towards the end there, and strings the grade ones together. And so it was tough, but I tilted towards Cody's Wish in the end. And then I put White Abarrio third, and I debated, and after I said up to the mark probably should have, but third doesn't really matter when they decide the actual winners are decided on first place ballots only. They decide the finalists on second and third as well. So, but just for
Now, is Cody's Wish going to be the male handicap winner also?
I think so.
I mean, how could White Abarrio be the older horse?
That's just
not.
I think if you want,
etc.
to go one, you kind of have to go the other in the backwards fashion. But we will be talking top of the hour racing across America. Mike McAdam from the Daily Gazette covers horse racing all year long, but certainly up at Saratoga. You see the coverage in the Gazette throughout from Mike, and he's an Eclipse voter. So we'll kind of go over our ballots at 10 o'clock. And also, as you kind of alluded to, the calendar turned and all the 2-year-olds became 3-year-olds a couple days ago. So I'm going to have Mike Curry on. Mike writes for America's Best Racing, the website, and he does a nice column kind of starting late in the 2-year-old season, but certainly into the 3-year-old Triple Crown season. Every couple of weeks, 3 that are hot, 3 that are cooling down, looking at some of the stakes action from the past couple of weeks. And so we're going to kick off the 3-year-old season talking about maybe some 3-year-olds to watch.
And I don't want to produce your show, but I have to tell you, is it Frank Vespa? Vespi? I need him on just to explain what might be going on in Maryland. I consider
and when I read the
myself
Blood Horse column, I thought with the weather tomorrow, I don't know, but we will have Frank on at some point too.
You know what didn't come up in the Blood Horse story, and I think we've seen this in California, Seth, and South Florida. One-track circuits is not a good idea. I mean, turf racing is so valuable because of field sizes. To me, that's I've told you. I think there's very few panaceas in life, Seth, but I think field size is the closest one to being a panacea for curing all ills, if you like. And I mean, Pimlico, because now it looks like Pimlico might be the 1-1. And that doesn't sound like a good idea. And I don't want to cast aspersions because I haven't been at the Preakness Stakes in a generation, but I can read. And that neighborhood wasn't on the upswing when I was going to the Preakness in the 80s and the 90s. But this does not sound like a good idea.
No, I would agree.
I would think even in today's day and age, I don't think this is an awful idea. And this is where Stronach was ahead of the curve at Gulfstream. At least both of them have to be operational. I don't need big grants. I don't think there's any grandstand anymore at Pimlico, right? They knocked it down, right? It didn't get a certificate of occupancy.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering if they're not using part of it. That's the way I thought of it. I don't know.
But I'm telling you, there's no. I mean, Pimlico has that one turf course. This does not sound like a good idea to me.
And for folks who didn't read the article, Frank Vespi, who does the Racing Biz website, which covers Mid-Atlantic, Maryland racing.
Regularly, he's outstanding. He's dialed in.
And we've talked to him in the last year or so about the Maryland situation, and they put some commissions together to kind of figure out what to do. And now their plan is that they're putting forward. It's not a go at this point, but essentially it'll be a state-run non-profit, not-for-profit organization they're talking about. Sounds like, to me, one of the big obstacles, and it sounds like somehow they've worked it out, is to get Stronach to step aside. Now they have kept, I found that interesting. I didn't even know this was a thing, but Stronach will hold the license to the Preakness.
And it would be run at Laurel for like 3 years.
As they rebuild a brand new, from the ground up, Pimlico facility. And then Laurel will go away. Stronach will maintain the right to redevelop that somehow. And they talked about, I'm assuming because of the limited area at Pimlico, they've talked about, we need another facility. And so they talked about a few facilities around that will become stable areas for the track.
And I'd like to get Frank's opinion on, first off, I don't think it's a good idea under any circumstance, but Frank's opinion on a real life present day is, because I think the area is called Pimlico, of that part of Baltimore, if it's as less attractive an area to have fans come to more than one day a year as people on the outside seem to say. And the other thing that always pops up that I never think of, except they tell me and I learn, is barn area, barn spaces. I think I saw Bowie Racetrack is, the old Bowie Racetrack is in the mix. But my point is this, is obviously I'm not dialed in, but I'm just telling, we all see the turf course at Gulfstream Park, come June. And I see the turf course at Santa Anita come June. And,
I've been saying that for years, though, as these circuits went down from 3, which I think was optimal for everybody.
I think so, too.
Boom, boom, boom down, not just to 2, but to 1. And you're absolutely right. I mean, it's just, I don't know if you can run. And Maryland is a year-round circuit. I don't know if you can run year-round on one track. Now, Maryland also, none of the things I read, and I don't think it would change, they would still do Timonium, I'm assuming. So there would be a brief.
But that's, there's no turf racing at Timonium. It's just a bull ring. And it's only, and I've tried to get there. I mean, the last couple of years, they've run like 6 days.
There were a few years ago when they kind of ceded some dates to Colonial. That's going back a few years, as I say. I don't really see them doing that, however.
And what's funny is we used to, and it's not funny because eventually in New York we're going to have 2 tracks, but we used to have 3-track circuits when turf racing was less popular.
Yeah,
we're going the wrong way with what's coming about. But I'd like to hear that article. I will say this: the article left me, and this doesn't happen very often. I actually walked away with that article, Seth, with more questions.
Well, I think his lead
when I came out than I walked into.
I think his lead kind of set that up. He was kind of. It was kind of. Here's the plan, but nobody seems to quite know how we're going to get there.
And you're right. Like, is Stronach getting paid 9 figures? I couldn't figure that part out. He's basically getting, what is he receiving to get, it's the wrong verb, but I'm going to use it, to be pushed out of the horse race? He's not, I mean, I don't get it, but I think Frank would have it dialed in. Because I think it's not good, is my opinion. No, I don't think.
At Maryland, certainly was for years and years, and I think still is to some extent, really the bedrocks of kind of American racing.
Breeding, running years.
Yeah, I mean. and there was a few years ago with the whole casinos getting in where it was not a good situation for Maryland. And then the last couple of years, it seemed like it had resurged a little bit, but this puts it in a whole other situation again where it's a little more.
I mean, I would just like to understand it better. I just, I mean, to me, I mean,
yeah,
it's tough to, we're going to have that in New York. One of the fears I think, Seth, a lot of us have is that synthetic racing is going to be the kind of like the catch-all to get through long seasons. I mean, it's just going to be there. Like, I know I already hear chirping, and I know you have Brian on often, but there's chirping at South Florida that Gulfstream Park is going to synthetic racing more than many people. I think were under the suspicion that it was going to kind of only be used for off the turfers, but it's being used more often than that. And the reason I bring that up is because most of the data shows that that's not the most preferred surface for bettors.
Yeah, no.
That's, my only thought there. I mean, I've always said this.
That was what I found funny too about the Pimlico article. It said they're going to build a new course, turf course, dirt, and then it said, but the dirt course, this wasn't exactly how it was worded, but it was essentially the dirt course will be ready if they want to switch it over to synthetic. So it sounded to me like some tracks are now like Gulfstream thinking of 3 surfaces.
Yes.
They seem to be thinking, oh, we're going to go one way or the other, dirt or synthetic, which I think would make bettors a little crazy.
And you should also know that, Pimlico is not a large, even mile and an eighth circumference. It's one of the small ones, a mile. That's why they only have one turf course inside. So I like to, as I said, it's not often I read something and I had more questions coming out than I walked in. And Frank, I know Frank would have the skinny on that, and I would be smarter after his interview.
I'm not sure he had. Like I said, I'm not sure all the answers are there yet, though. This is just the commissioners come out with recommendations. I still think they have to.
Stronach's got to get paid. I mean, if he gets,
yeah, that's what I was amazed in the article. It said, and it hinted that they have come to some kind of agreement with him, and I thought, no, that's funny. Yeah, I
Frank
agree.
know that?
It's like, I wonder how that's working. All right, you ready to jump in?
I am. I love the card today, and Mother Nature, I think, is going to play nicely for the 12:20 post time start for this card, because I think this is a intriguing card. A couple stakes races. Go ahead.
All right, the opener at Aqueduct on this first Saturday in 2024. We're looking at state bred maiden specials, going 6.5 furlongs.
And just so you know, my wife's like, you should have been a forensic accounting. I said, honestly, if that was a thing in 1981, I probably would have been. But we are at 94.68, and I have 5 months, folks, to get around the loop. I need one good day a month, I think. It's a lot of pressure just made up. I like the card today, very much so. We get to the 2 stakes races, but this is probably going to go one of 2 ways for me, Seth, because I thought that David Aragona there's some significant favorites as a function of the morning line today. And I will say that I think I've gone against all of them but one. Now, here's something. On Talking Horses yesterday, Andy Serling was on, and he was having a discussion that I started 20 years ago with the Les Well angle. And he was talking about over the summer when he was having, I guess, on TV, a spat with Tom Amos, who we love, who was an outstanding trainer, talking about these juveniles who run nicely in their debut and then come back and run the phrase that I coined over 20 years ago, Les Well. And this is not a phenomenon. I mean, I've said this before. The real trigger to the Les Well is the fact that you're getting like 1/6 the price. That's the trigger. And I'm like, this is not an uncommon thing. This is, very natural. And at Saratoga, we see it very often. And my point is, I think there's at least 3 times today where David has made, and rightfully so, because his job is the predict the way the fans are going to bet. And I'll tell you, Seth, I've read at least 2 articles of note saying something that you're 5 years ahead of the curve, talking about the power of the buyer's speed figures and the wagering dollars. And to me, that plays into my Les Well angle going back 20 plus years ago. So the first race is an example of that. I'm 4-1-2, and the race goes through the 1, and the bigger race was the second career start. But boy, Seth, I've said this before. If the horse repeats that effort, and nothing is to say that it will, because it was a first-time dirt, raced well, gets Lasix today now that the calendar is turned, not a 2-year-old. You're going to get all the worst of it because this horse is going to get bet. 4 to 5 might look like a gift at about 12-19. But I'm 4-1-2, as you see. 13 red flags. The thing that I like about 13 red flags, I'm 8-1 in the morning line, and I'm going to find out if the debut was aided by a muddy racetrack, because this horse did everything, Seth, that I like. Was 11-1 on debut, showed me a little something, and then as I don't scream at the television, but as I like to tell my audience, I'm yelling at the TV, run worse, run worse. Backs up to finish off the board, beaten almost 10 lengths. I'm going to find out at 8-1 on 13 red flags, my top pick. 4-2 Fabulous Fox, getting Lasix, the third career start, and then Brooklyn Dance, Leah Giramati's runner, making the third career start. Started at 6.5, ran a mile, now shortens back up. A quick notice, I see Into Mischief, 5 years in a row, the outstanding leading trainer. I guess the record is 8 by Bold Ruler. And that was an era where there were far fewer stallions. So I told you one of the most interesting things about Into Mischief, right? His career, every time he was favored, he lost. Every time he wasn't the chalk, he won.
That's an interesting record. I'm going to take a shot with the Brittany Russell Firster in there because it's by violence. I like that. But it's notable your horse comes back, just gets outside of that 7-day window that would have triggered that 7-day record down there. But it's a quick comeback, and that's always notable to me because the horse kind of, you would think, is tearing down the barn or something that's saying, okay, let's get right back in the mix.
And yesterday, had the network on, turned it on about 10:14-ish, and network was running Steve Bicken, and he had Brittany Russell interview. Do we run that show the day after it ran live? Okay, so that interview was whenever, I guess Thursday. But we ran on the network yesterday. It was about a 15, 20-minute long interview. It was good. She was good. She was sharp. She was, I think the term would be media savvy. Like sometimes trainers, that's not their most comfortable zone, but she was very good with Steve on his show. Thursday, but
for folks who aren't aware, Linda Rice gets the record for number of wins in New York in a year on the last day of the year. But Brittany Russell wound up to be the leading trainer for the year down in Maryland. From what I read, hers wasn't a record number of wins, but it was still notable. Was
it the first time a woman in Maryland did it
yeah,
also?
I think, yeah.
Well, and one thing about Linda Rice, and I've said this for months now, is she broke through the Mormino bar graph thing. She basically raced at 22% for 12 months. That's unheard of.
And with the last day of the year, put another meet title in the
last 2 days at Saratoga, she went through the roof. Last 2 days of the racing, she went through the roof.
Second race at Aqueduct this afternoon. Conditional claimers, non-winners at $2, $16,000 tag, 3/4 of a mile.
And this is the race where I went to the favorite in this. I am 3-5-1. You Better Be Joking at George Weaver, offspring of Practical Joke. Practical Joke is dead, right?
I don't know.
Practical Joke, I believe, as a stallion has passed. And the reason I bring that up is he was one of the sons of Into Mischief that looked like he was going to be a good stallion. I've said this before, that some people in the breeding industry find the ultimate Mount Everest for a stallion is to produce sons who are stallions. 6-5 in the morning line, third start since March. A marked improvement in the second one. Manny Franco takes the mount back. Same level. The restricted, I'm a Practical Joke offspring. You Better Be Joking. For a second, Bad Larry. First off, the claim for Melody Giddings. Oh, by the way, kudos to Sean Clancy for winning the Eclipse Award for the story. And for third, Tater and Tot, who I have to tell you, first time in for a tag. I know I have this horse in third, but if I was really looking to upset the apple cart, it was going to be Tater and Tot, double-digit odds coming off of the victory. And what I like here, the victory was at Finger Lakes, back on the Naira circuit, and they took the 2L route, which I think Jeffrey Engelhardt, very sharp trainer. And if this was the other thing I had working for me was Jeffrey Engelhardt is the poster child for the Mormino bar graph. And if this is the time, Tater and Tot be the type of horse to get it going. But 3-5-1.
Race number 3 at Aqueduct Stakes action. It is the Jerome. Kicks off the 3-year-old trail in New York with the 3-year-olds vying for $150,000 and traveling the 1-turn mile.
Just a quick thought on the Jerome. For me personally, and it goes through Seattle. So when Seattle Sioux won the Triple Crown, the stories had come out, and I kind of knew. I hadn't seen him. He didn't run at Saratoga as a juvenile. He was supposed to, but a stall injury, so career started in September. Then he wins the Triple Crown, and I'm thinking, well, I'll see him at Saratoga. And the original plan, as I remember, whether it was in Sports Illustrated or what, was Billy Turner wanted to take his shoes off, and he was going to come back in the Jerome. He was going to skip Saratoga. He was going to get some time off, and he was going to come back in the Jerome. And at that time, the Jerome was a big race. It was going to be a mile, and I was like, oh, I'm going to miss him again. Obviously, we know the swap stakes and then the time off. But the other thing is, Mr. Alan Jerkins, when they talk about, and he never liked this, so I call him Mr. Alan Jerkins, he never liked being called Giant Killer. It was not his. He liked Chief, but he didn't like Giant Killer. The one that everybody misses, he beat Forgo in the Jerome. When, by the way, Forgo wasn't Forgo when Secretariat beat him in the Derby. But if you look at the charts on the undercard of the Belmont, Forgo set tied a track record that day. He was starting to become Forgo, and I think the horse's name was Step Nicely. I'm pretty sure that's it. But it's one that's completely forgotten, that Mr. Jerkins took down Secretariat one day and Forgo about 8 days later, or the reverse. But and also the year that the Slough was supposed to run in it, but didn't, one of those rarities, double DQs.
Oh,
you don't get those too often. But 5-1-4 in a race that now is no longer a Labor Day 3-year-old Grade 1. It's a listed 3-year-old start of the Kentucky Derby Trail at the 1-turn mile. 5-1-4, as you see on the board. And you have an even money shot and a 9-5 shot. And I do not find them to be appreciably better than the best. Now, drum roll, please. I'm looking at the maiden victory, not the Remsen in the mud, because I think my thoughts on races on off-goings are rather well known. Well, I think the 5 with Brittany Russell trying to make it 3 in a row has already won going 2 turns, so is shortening up and is a grandson of Into Mischief, and I'm on the outside, and I got stalking speed, and her husband's on it. I like my chances at 5-1. Drum roll, please. 1 broke the maiden, 3rd career start, going the 1-turn mile at Aqueduct, and then ran in the Remsen and ran 3rd, and that's what makes the even money here. Now shortens back up to 1 turn, and for 3rd, El Grande. Oh, Linda Rice's runner, first start since winning the Sleepy Hollow, a New York bred. I think it's more intriguing than an even money shot and a 9-5 shot. I like the 5 in the Jerome.
4th race this afternoon, we are looking at maiden specials. They will be going the 1-turn mile. A field of 6 is set for the 4th.
4-1-6. For me, I thought this was a wide open race. Bolt de Plata is my top pick, making the first start since October, has always run for a tag, now runs maiden special weights off of 2 good, solid efforts for a tag. John Terranova gave this horse November and December off. We come back with Trevor McCarthy in the saddle for second. Number 1, Egypt. We don't see these silks, Seth, as often as we did 20 years ago, but Mary Kay Schwartz, the familiar black and white halves, coming off also back-to-back second-place finishes. That was coming off of a February to October layoff. So you saw, now this horse scares me because this horse did what I generally not so much expect, but am not surprised to see, which is the strong effort off the layoff, the muscle regression, and now the move forward. And then Lunacy for Richard Dutrow Jr., who is, obviously you want to get in front of that train. Good luck to you. 4-1-6 in one of my favorite races of the day. I mean, it was
Fifth race, we're looking at state-bred maidens. Again, they will go 3/4 of a mile.
Interesting race here. We have 3 horses first time in for a tag. None of them are on my list. 716, Compute It, an offspring of Cloud Computing. Jim Ryerson sends this out for the debut, and workouts are not something I refer to. Maybe one show a month, maybe less often. I don't know. But I like what I'm seeing from this runner, and I liked Cloud Computing as a runner, and he's a young stallion, and I'm on the outside, and I'm 8-1. I'm going to take Compute It on top. As I said, so over the remaining 6, half the field is in for a tag for the first time, and I've avoided them. Number 1, Braca gets my second pick with Dylan Davis. Showed nothing on debut, marked improvement in the second start. Now you're going to get all the worst of it for Price. Now he's down inside versus being outside in the last. Small sample size, but the last time he was down inside, it didn't go so well. And for third, number 6, Retail Man. Jim Ryerson's other runner, beaten favorites, last 2 races. I'd never like that. Does get Lasix today as a 3-year-old. Back in for a tag, but I want the Jimmy Ryerson first at 8-1, so 716.
Love to know the story behind the number 2. Michael Dubb, homebred, out of the dam. Diane's still working, and this one's named Diane's retiring. So there's got to be
must be like the 8 or 10 years in between these horses. Diane, filed her retirement papers. That's a good one. Obviously, the only one that come close to that was the old stop charging.
Michael,
stop shopping Maria.
Mike Rapoli.
Mike Rapoli.
All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, more Aqueduct a little bit later on Gulfstream. Stay tuned.
You know, I can't figure out that.
Gulfstream Park's championship meet brings world-class thoroughbred racing to South Florida each winter, and it's a prime reason to offer the best turf racing possible. Having the best surfaces is the key to offering a superior racing product. We are committed to attracting the world's best horses, trainers, and jockeys to run over our exceptional course. Gulfstream Park's new turf course will be unveiled this December.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad. Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
Almost said racing across America.
Yeah, see, you're about 26 minutes away.
And again, top of the hour, Mike McAdam will join me. We'll talk Eclipse ballots. They were due last Wednesday, and we will know the finalists. You alluded to it earlier. The media awards have already been handed out, but we'll know the finalists for the Eclipse Awards in a few days. And I'll also be joined by Mike Curry, who writes about, has a nice little ongoing 3-year-old column on America's Best Racing. So 3-year-old season kicks off. We'll talk a little bit about that.
I told you we're hoping to go next year to Derby. Anthony will be a senior in high school. It'll be Derby 151. All the hype will be done. But I'm hoping Denise has never been. I've been, and young Anthony will be, of an age that he could remember it and enjoy it. He likes horse racing, so I'm hoping next year to go to the Derby.
Nice.
Yes.
Mentioned Steve Bick a little bit earlier.
Yes.
We are certainly rooting for Scherzando, the number
too.
4 horse in here. State-bred maiden specials going 6.5 in the 6th.
Now, Steve did not tip out this horse. He basically told us that his being on track is based on 2 things. Tina, and Tina's decision will be a weather decision. So I think he could get down there safely. But now I am 4-7-2. Now, one of the things I've said before, and it's more applicable to maiden claiming, because I think one of the big angles always is like the fresh new face in that level. So what I started doing years ago was denoting when the most veteran in that group, which usually, you've been maiden claiming for 9 races, you told us who you were. I started denoting them because to me, everything's a function of price. So I noticed that it's like, I don't discount those horses anymore. Now, a little twist on that is Steve's horse is by far the most veteran in the maiden special weight group. I mean, this is 22 starts. Now, for Steve and his people, they made like $150. His horse has hit the board in nearly half the races. Might be 0 for 22. Javier Castellano, has just missed a couple times with this. I was hoping the shortening up here, or that the mile race most recently got the little bit of a foundation to finally break through. So I have Steve on top. DT stable. I think we'll receive better than 8-1 for a second, Flying in Style. They add blinkers. That's Charlie Baker, making the 3rd start since Saratoga. I have to presume the last race, you read the comment, this is a horse who's shown, early interest. Ridden early, no threat. Ridden early and never got close to any other horse. So that's a question mark for me. And for 3rd, Captain Party, moving into the David Donk barn, making the 1st start since June. So 4-7-2.
Yeah, you mentioned I was handicapping the other night and watching a handicapping show on YouTube, and they were going through this sequence, and they mentioned Scherzando, 12 starts, $144,000. Not bad. And I know Steve was a little bit disappointed with that near miss in Saratoga, which was a great race by Scherzando. Just missed up in Saratoga, but you'd love to get in the winner's circle up there, certainly, and they just missed. 7th race at Aqueduct, optional claim or non-winners of 2 other than 7 furlongs of the trip.
3-7-5 for me, folks. And Set Sail, Bill Mott's runner, making the 2nd start since September. The comeback race, you had the off-going, you had the half mile, then you threw out the anchor. Jose Lescano gets them out today. High Oak, who's 7-5 on the board. This is a horse who, a long time ago, our good friend Lee, they had very high hopes. It didn't work out. I thought that the race at Saratoga with Katie Davis was outstanding. Then they hit the board in the forego against 2 outstanding sprinters. I mean, it was a terrific race and has maintained that level. The race goes to High Oak. And then for 3rd, Jeff Fafa, 3-7-5.
Yeah, Lee was pretty happy after that 3rd place in the 4.
Had to be.
Finished behind those.
I mean, I know it will never happen because Kona Gold should have won the horse of the year in 2000, but it is not unreasonable that Elite Power would be horse of the year. And I say that because for people who watch racing every day, Seth, this is the difference. I was full on board on Gunite in the forego because that was the day he had everything going for him being Gunite, and Elite Power had everything going against him. So the one time Elite Power lost, he was supposed to lose that day. And he lost to a horse like Gunite. And Gunite had everything his own way. He had I remember doing the show with you. I was like, he wasn't going to be a big price, but I'm like, this is the day. This is the day. The way the track was playing, the short field, he was going to get the lead. It was his day.
And the prior race was one of the best races up at Saratoga.
Yes.
8th race at Aqueduct, the ladies, 1 mile and an 1/8. The trip, $150,000. The purse.
It's too competitive of a race. I mean, it's 4 equal runners. One thing I want to say about the ladies, especially to the audience, if you're older than me, 2 things, Seth. This used to be the Breeders' Cup Distaff race. And the reason I say that is this race has been around since nearly the Civil War. This used to be, along with the Belle Dame, the 2 most premier filly and mare races in America. Used to be run at 1.25 miles, It stopped being a grade 1 in 90, stopped being a grade 3 in 04. It's past its day. But I wanted to pay homage to one of the great races. 1868, I denoted its first running. 254 to me. To me, it's all the 245. I mean, it's these three runners. Whatever order, I settled on the deuce because it's the third start in America. And I think this is the time that Christophe Clement puts this runner over the edge, and I'm probably not going to be the favorite. The 5 comparative for Brad Cox, second start since May. The comeback was a career best, so I'm worried. And then for 3, third, she's Mo Bubbly, 254 in what used to be one of the great races in America.
We will wrap it up at approximately 4:15 this afternoon.
Or maybe earlier.
Ninth race, keep your eyes on it because if they get weather, they could move things up. 12.5 plain vanilla claimers going 6.
And one thing I give Naira kudos to, they almost immediately go to that. Like if they make this decision, it'll be when they come on right away, that post on up. 263, nobody rides for free. Long shot in here for Chris Engelhart. I was watching a little bit on Christmas Day and had the Chris Engelhart piece on there. Mr. Phil for second, adding blinkers, and then High Heat, 263 in the finale.
All right, we'll take another break. When we come back, Gulfstream Park, stay tuned.
Birdstone is an outside front. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes. But here comes High Chaparral. High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to Falbrough. These two arch rivals head to head with Joe Hart bearing down on them. It's going to be a 3-horse photo finish to the turn. Here's the wire. Photo finish.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
What if there was a way to become a better horse player, to have a better knowledge of the game, to be more successful? What if there were a way to take what you've learned, what you know, and make better decisions, better choices? In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool. Race results and replays, past performances and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
And welcome back. And our director literally sprinted into the room as we went to break. And as I said, Naira, they're going to forget 4:16. Their schedules to be out at 3:56. They are going to start at 12:20. They don't usually change the first one, but then each one after that is going to be my quick math in my head set, and there's going to be 27 minutes between races today in New York. 3:56. So 20 minutes earlier is the new adjusted final post time in New York today. I could see that coming. As I said, the last couple, they're great at that nowadays. All right, let's go to Gulfstream Park. Seth, the first race on the synthetic, 3-year-old maiden claimers going 5.5.
This is a rough bunch. I'm going to play around a little bit in here, though. I have a 4, 5, 1, and 2. Lady Monique by Lord Nelson. Lord Nelson is an interesting win early sire. The stats for Lord Nelson: 48 firsters last year, 7 wins, 5 seconds, 3/3. Those are pretty good numbers. First or second, a quarter of the time. The dam has produced some win early types. One flat-out winner, second in debut, one in the 4th career start. Another sibling, Cool Man Walk-In, third in debut, won the 2nd start. I will note there are plenty of other siblings that were not quite as good, but I'm going to roll the dice a little bit with, I thought, some breeding top and bottom that is interesting. And that Bullet workout on the 20th, morning line at 12-1. We'll take a little shot with the firster, number 4, Lady Monique. Second spot, we're going to go to number 5. This one has some experience. Rohan Creighton Irod Ortiz back on board after having ridden this horse last time to a sixth-place finish, disappointing as the beaten favorite. I'm going to give this one more shot, however, with the experience and the fact that Irod elected to stay. And then Nipsey in the third spot. Kozan, a favorite sire of mine with win early types.
It's like your pet.
71 first-time starters last year, 12 wins, 11 seconds, 6 thirds. But, and I might have put this horse on top, but the lone racing sibling is 0 for 12. So, and again, it's a kind of a rough bunch of maiden claimers, but we'll play around a little bit, see if we can make something happen. In the opener, 4, 5, 1, and 2.
Two things. It was the runner Practical Move who died. Not Practical Joke, it was Practical Move. And secondly, was it Kozan that I heard you tell the audience yesterday to put in your hip pocket or something?
Was that Kozan? Oh, because there was 2 Kozans in a race at, I want to say, Oaklawn, I think. Oh. And the firster didn't win, but ran second at about 9-1.
Second race, 3-year-old maidens going a mile on the turf.
8219 in a jam on top, Marquesi trainee. And if you kind of parse out the turf runs, they stand out a little bit. I mean, the starts 2 and 3 back were off the turfers. So again, just look at the last 3 turf starts, and this horse seems to be running well on turf and maybe improving in the near miss last time. I'll put in a jam on top. Second spot, Oscar's World by Oscar Performance. The debut effort was a nice little third behind the top pick in a jam. But whereas in a jam has plenty of experience, Oscar's World may still have a little upside potential. And then Ocala Rocket in the third spot, as the Rocket in the name suggests, a Frank Fletcher runner out of the Bill Mott stable. Blinkers off today. That may be notable because the best of the 3 races so far was the Saratoga start without blinkers. So I like the equipment change as well. In the second, 8, 2, 1, and 9.
On to the third, optional claimers, going 7 furlongs on the dirt.
2, 5, 1, and 3. I'm going to put Flakes on top. Nice little field in here with some horses with some stakes experience, and this is one of them. Dropped into an optional claimer last time and ran third. Goes from a 7-pound apprentice to Edgar Zayas, journeyman jockey, talented journeyman jockey. And again, with that stakes experience, a little class, gets the journeyman jockey that may be beneficial. I'll put Flakes on top. 4 Dawn, a little bit interesting, going out for Jenna Antonucci. Hasn't been seen since October, but what attracted my attention here was moves into the Jenna Antonucci stable, and they have powered a couple of nice works in this horse. Middle of December, a bullet work 47-2, and towards the end of December, a bullet 59-1. I think 4 Dawn could be very interesting coming off of those workouts. Luis Saez on board. Irod Ortiz is on board. Lynx, the number 1 horse. Another one with some stakes experience underneath. Another one that might class up nicely. And notable here that this is the second start off a relatively long layoff and may have gotten a little fitness in that return effort. So race number 3 at Gulfstream, 2, 5, 1, and 3.
On to the fourth, 3-year-olds maiden optional claimers, going 6 on the dirt.
7, 8, 2, and 1. Mighty Mekong on top. Debut effort I thought was okay. Was behind the next out winner. There was a sibling called Jackson that won its career debut, won a 2-year-old stake in the 5th start of the career, went on to be a multiple stakes winner. Another sibling called Zelensky Strong that won its career debut. And the sire, it's Kozan. So didn't live up to that in the debut, but I thought top and bottom there was some win early. With the one under the belt now, let's look for Mighty Mekong to break through this afternoon. Second spot, Far From a Star, Safi Joseph runner that just missed in debut. And I would think, I will note, that was the same race as my top pick. This one ran third, Far From a Star. Mine ran fourth. I say it all the time. Sometimes you try to get clever and switch them up, and they come in the same order. I'm going to try to switch them up today, however. Mighty Mekong on top over Far From a Star. And then Paisan in the third spot. Another one by Kozan. And I say it often that if you have that win early and they don't get it done, star 1, star 2, star 3, but switch things up, excuse me, maybe take another look. You know, if the surface switch or class, equipment, whatever, there's a few things going on here. They're going main special weight to maiden claiming. Horse hasn't been seen since June. Sometimes these kind can come back from a little bit of a layoff like this, improved, but also blinkers on, Lasix, first time gelding. This horse could be very, very dangerous in here with that whole scenario at work. In the fourth, 7-8, 2-1.
You know, I certainly agree with the idea. We try and get clever in this game, and it runs back. The one caveat that I have for myself is, you know, and this is going back 30 years now, that my thought always was they overbet the idea of the same thing happening again. I mean, I think it's rare that when the people, and I would be in that camp that would do it often, reverse them. It can often be the idea where the price has so much disparity. We're thinking, well, they were pretty close to last time. Yeah, and there's probably a 60% chance they run the same way. But as we've said, not only are Buyer's speed figure horses overbet, horses off their last race repeating it are all overbet. Onto the fifth, on the dirt, 6.5. Claimers in for 62.50.
2, 4, 6, and 3. Joe DiBaggio on top. This is a race where you're just not going to have a very strong opinion. But I just think comes in relatively good form, gets down to probably the comfort zone class-wise, was claimed out of this level 4 starts back, and that was a win. So I'm going to tilt slightly in this direction. Never satisfied. The win 2 back was very good at 10, followed that up in another 10 claimer and ran a little bit of a disappointing 5th. Now drops down the ladder to this bottom 62.50. And again, I think the class move will be beneficial. Pure Spite in the 3rd spot off the claim. Trainer is very good off the claim. But again, I'm always a little bit concerned. Comes back at half the price of the claim. Now, from 12.5 to 6,250 isn't a huge move. And, you know, you get the win and somebody took it away, you'd be okay. But there is always something that makes you scratch your head a little bit. In the 5th, 2, 4, 6, and 3.
One more before break. State breds, optional claimers, non-winners, one other than going 6 on the dirt.
2, 1, 5, and 3. Sadie Bear on top. Just a horse with a lot of early positional speed. Now, I'm not in love with the record that says this horse likes to be in the bridal party. 1 win and 9 starts, 6 seconds, 2/3. So always in the money, just doesn't necessarily like to get the picture taken. And that goes to the last couple of starts as well, a couple of close-up seconds. So I'm a little bit concerned about that, but I think this horse maybe has the edge. Katana probably the horse to beat on a best effort. Another one that seems to be in good form, certainly on the win end, has a lot more going for it than the top pick with 9 wins in a 40-start career. And then in the 3rd spot, Minxie moves into a new barn, has plenty of punch, though, with a string of 3/3 being bookended by a couple of wins in the last 5 starts. Another one in good form probably fits with this bunch. 6th race, 2, 1, 5, and 3.
Take a quick break. When we come back, second half of today's action from Gulfstream.
And they're off in the Pegasus World Cup. They're off in the Fountain of Youth Stakes. And they're off in the Curlin Florida Derby. Forte wins. White Aborio almost home. And Nyquist is still unbeaten. Orb and John Velasquez have won the Florida Derby. Barbaro wins.
And there you have it. Northern Dancer will be the winner of the Florida Derby.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to race number 7, optional claimers. Entry-level allowance, mile 16th on the turf for race 7.
Looks competitive in here, 10, 2, 11, and 8. I put Quality G on top. Todd Pletcher, Irod Ortiz coming off a couple of nice second-place finishes. The last one on a move from New York down to Gulfstream. It was a near miss as the favorite. I'll give this one another shot. Roos in the second slot. I'm going back to the Turf Star 2 back. Last time came down from New York to Gulfstream, tried the synthetic, ran okay, showed some punch early, but then faded a little bit late. But I think, as I say, the return to turf, I think, moves this one back into a better spot. And then Fredo in the third spot. Came down from New York to Gulfstream last time, showed some punch before fading to be third. But you look down the page, a little bit inconsistent, but on a best effort, belongs in the conversation with this group. American Diamond for Safi Joseph, I think, can be a player. Hakimi, the number 12. Interesting little race, as I say. I think it's competitive. 10, 2, 11, and 8.
8th race, 3-year-old starter optional claimers, a mile 16th on the synthetic.
3, 1, 4, and 5. I'm going to put Reza Rolex on top. Reza Rolex. Finished behind Tappet 3 times, and another one, finished in front of Tappet 3 times with Magic Shadow running third. So this is one where I'm kind of keeping it the same. I have the one, the winner over the second place finisher with the third place finisher down in the 4th spot for me. But again, they both come out of a nice race, a nice gutsy win, a head victory. I'll look for them, as I say, in this instance, to keep things the same. And then I'm going to plug a new face in the 3rd spot. Brittany Russell brings Painter's Prodigy down from Laurel off a nice debut win. Now, it was for a 12-5 tag. This is probably a little bit of a saltier bunch, but I thought this horse did it in kind of fine fashion. Nice gutsy nose win in debut. Should be a player with this group. In the 8th, I have it 3, 1, 4, and 5.
3 stakes races to wrap it up. 3-year-old fillies in the Ginger Brew going a mile.
6, 4, 5, and 7. Waskisiu. I will let Pete Aiello handle that one better than I did. But moved over to the turf last time for Bill Mott and was a nice winner. The efforts were all good in that they were all moving forward from start 1 to start 2 to start 3, but clearly seemed to improve with the stretch out and the move to turf last time. I'll look for that to continue. I think it's a nice spot to step into stakes company. Ozera in the 2nd spot, a couple of wins, bookending a 4th and a 2nd, but the last 3 starts of the career, all stakes races. Christophe Clement winner, as I say, last time out was a winner. That was in a stakes race right here at Gulfstream. Likely to be a serious player again today, and Time to Dazzle for Mark Cassie. Also a couple of wins, bookending another finish. The non-win was the lone stakes on the resume, but it was the 2nd start of the career. It was the Jessamine over at Keeneland. I think better suited here with some experience under the belt to return to stakes company. In the 9th, 6, 4, 5, and 7.
On to the 10th, 3-year-olds in the Limehouse going 6.
2, 5, 4, and 1. Valiant Force came over from Europe to try the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. Closed to just miss in there. I'm going to look for this one to be well spotted in here, albeit trying the dirt for the first time. I have that circled and noted, but I also circled and noted the bullet workout on the Gulfstream track back on December 22nd. The follow-up workout was very good as well, 2nd best of 81. So it seems like in the morning, at least, this horse may live up to what we've seen on the turf so far. Valiant Force on top. Louis the Sun King in the 2nd spot. Kathleen O'Connell runner was a nice winner over at Tampa last time. But A, it was over at Tampa. B, it was maiden claimers. I just think, and you can look back at the debut, maiden special here at Gulfstream, and it wasn't as good. But it seems to be one of those that probably benefited from the experience and had that kind of improvement. I think we'll need to move forward again. I just don't think that's out of the question. Cuban Thunder, same trainer as the top pick, so an uncoupled entry mate, so to speak, coming off of a couple of nice and a couple of improving efforts since arriving from Europe. Makes a little sense in here. In the 10th, 2-5-4-1.
And in the finale, one of Seth's, so this must kick off
Kicking off.
The Dania Beach, 3-year-olds going a mile on the turf.
5, 7, 10, and 2. Reminder on top. Another one that moved to the turf last time with a very nice effort, improved effort as far as the numbers. So seem to appreciate the turf last time. We'll see if that continues this afternoon, but I think that's very possible. Brendan Walsh sends out Palm Tree for Godolphin, who was just a smidge behind the top pick last time on a nice effort as well. Makes a lot of sense. And Agate Road in the 3rd spot. Winner of the Pilgrim up at Aqueduct back in October, then went out and tried the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. Ran 5th, but an okay 5th. Comes back east for Todd Fletcher. Irod Ortiz on board, and I think makes a lot of sense and very dangerous in here. The 11th, 5, 7, 10, and 2.
All right, that wraps up the Handicappers Report. Quick note, still the same 12:20 post time in New York, but they're going to squeeze about 20 minutes out of the day and try and get you out about 3:56. Weather is supposed to be a little rough for us, I think, starting in the PM, late PM this evening. So be careful out there. Happy New Year. He stays, I go. Have a great Saturday.
OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.